All right, looks like it's 12 o'clock. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Class 2 of the Smart Sewer Program RPR information session. First of all, happy September 1st. It seems like summer has flown by. This is kind of favorite time of the year for me within the construction season. Moisture is back in the ground, humidity's down, grass is starting to green back up, and plants are starting to take shape. Never hurts that football season's right around the corner too. I think we have some local teams kicking off this weekend, so a lot going on. It's an exciting time. Real quick, wanted to cover the overview of Class 1, just in case you missed it. Look for the recording within eBuilder. But within Class 1, we covered the RPR's roles and responsibilities. We also highlighted the current RPR reference manual, which we will send that out to the group as well. Covered an overview of the importance of the fluid communication during the construction phase with project team members. And we also discussed both completed and upcoming project types within Smart Sewer. So that'll get us into the material today for Class 2. With this class, I wanted to take the opportunity to just highlight our different project types within the program and discuss a few important inspection components for each project type. This way, the inspectors and RPRs can be aware and look for further inspection needs within the contract documents to make sure that the contractor is adhering to these documents. So today we'll be covering sanitary inspection items, water main replacement, vertical construction and facility projects, and green infrastructure. So first off, we have sanitary sewer inspection items. CIPP installation. It's important that you first off confirm with the contractor the correct sequence as it's outlined in the 1015 specific project requirements specification. So make sure that they are completing point repairs, obviously, and cementitious lining before the installation of CIPP. It's also important to note that the contractor is placing the pipe inseals or the water stops during installation process and collecting material samples for testing. 20% of those samples will be sent in to an independent lab. So make sure that they are taking these samples and also within these lab results that they're sending the submittal back to you for an approved result of the tests. Also, within CIPP lining, make sure that the contractor is submitting their post-CCT review before the monthly billing. This is for mainline CIPP, as well as service lateral lining and CIPP patches. Another item is pipe bursting. This is very popular these days compared to the old open trench excavation method. Within pipe bursting, it's important to make sure that the contractor is using the approved materials. So there's two options. There's strain joint PVC pipe, which is the CertaFlow or CertaLock. The pipe has gaskets, so make sure that the gaskets are inserted correctly, as you can see from the photos on the right. The gasket and also the spline. Make sure that the spline is being inserted fully and completed as well. The second option of pipe material is the HDPE pipe. With this, it's very important if you have a pipe burst segment that's over 15 feet in depth, that the contractor is abiding by the specification as the wall thickness requirement changes. So keep that as note as well. And then within the manholes, make sure that manhole adapters are being used. So this is the break-in connections to the manholes. It's a gasket that goes over the pipe before the non-shrink grout collar is placed. Once the pipe bursting segment is completed for verification, the air pressure test is needed. This test is outlined in spec section 2702. There is a table that provides a formula depending on the pipe diameter and length of pipe for the requirements that the contractor is needed to hold PSI. Sanitary service connections. There's a few different connection materials as you've probably seen. There's PVC STR26 pipe fittings, insertities, and saddle connections. So with the saddle connections in particular, it's important that the contractor is removing all of the VCP clay hose pipe before they place the bands of the saddle connection. I think this has been something that in the past few years, not real recently, but in the when these saddles were particularly more new to contractors, this was a bit of an issue where we've seen some contractors try to leave the back side of the VCP hose pipe in place. So just be on the lookout for that. Also within the service lateral connections, rely on the 1270. Most of the contracts these days have each item for the service connection, which includes up to 5 horizontal feet. So that's measured off the main. So if there's a service connection coming in from up top, basically at 12 o'clock or so, they have to be 5 horizontal feet before that additional footage measurement picks up. Also with service connections, it's important that the RPRs have access to survey 123. The photo to the right is just a snippet of the survey 123 application on a phone. Basically, it documents the lateral connection, which has pull downs for project, segment number, size of main, and then as well as the actual service connection details. So you can upload a picture as you see, and then within the inspection comments, we like to see what the details are of the service connection. So off the saddle, if there's a foot of PVC and then back to a fitting, relay all that information within those comments as well. And if you as the RPR need access to this, just shoot me an email and I will get you an invite for this application. Manhole casting replacements. There's a couple different types of castings. There's the standard castings, which are the hinged. These are to be used in non-through traffic areas, which includes driveways and sidewalks, as well as the unpaved areas. And then there's also the adjustable paved castings, which should be used in streets and alleyways and through traffic areas. So the adjustable castings are the ones that can be raised and lowered without using manhole grade adjustment rings. So you see these a lot, obviously, in the streets with the 4x4 concrete pad. For the adjustment rings, if you see concrete rings out there on a sanitary sewer job, that's a big no-no. Contractors should be using Pretex Pro rings or the East Jordan Inforizer rings. So keep that of note as well. And then within the paved areas, the I&I barriers. These are the yellow top hats that basically keeps I&I from entering between any adjustment rings. And these are used in the paved applications as well. And then last note on casting replacements are the external chimney seals. So this is gator wrap or an approved equal. Per the detail, it's very important that if possible, subgrading allowed, that the contractors are placing the gator wrap below the connection of the casting or an I&I barrier adhering to the chimney. So as you can see on this detail, extending that gator wrap just below that connection to prevent any potential I&I at that area as well. Cementitious lining, with this, just rely on the 3362 specification that the contractors submitted approved materials and product data, as well as the applicator qualifications. And then with, like any other material that's brought to the field, verify that it matches the approved submittal, as well as the materials that they're planning on using for patching or infiltration products. So this would be the Permacast Patch 20 or the Strong Shield QSR Plus. Also confirm the manhole rehab work sequence. So with cementitious lining, other rehab should be done before lining. So that would be CIPP lining into the manhole, and also the casting replacements should be done prior to any cementitious lining. Cleaning and prep. So this is an important one. Try to get your eyes on the cleaning before the contractor begins cementitious lining. Make sure that they've got the manholes power washed. There's no evidence of loose debris or anything still within the manhole. There's no oil or grease spots. The manhole steps have been removed, and also that they've sealed any potential active leaks, as well as temperature requirements. So keep in mind, obviously in the summer, we don't want them trying to apply cementitious lining if the ambient air temperature is above 90 degrees. As well as within the winter, there's the limitations is basically mixing temperature should not be below 40 degrees. So keep that in mind as well. During the application, have the contractor give you some thickness measurements as they work their way down and apply the cementitious lining to make sure that they are applying that at 1 inch thickness. That's important as well. And then vacuum testing, do this in accordance with the 2702 and 3362 specification. So, the city representative should identify 20% of the line manholes for testing. These manholes will be selected on segments that have pipe diameters of 15 inches or less. So keep that in mind during the selection process. I know that the specification reads that the city should select these manholes, but we are okay with the engineer selecting these manholes and providing those to the contractor to be tested. With that, we will move into water main replacement with Tina Haas with KC Water.
Good afternoon. The water main installation replacement. Basically, here's what the record on the plans and the daily labor force reports and items that you need to have on there. What type of pipe they're installing. This could be ductile iron pipe. This could be cast iron, which is no longer accepted because that's existing, and that's what you'll be tying into. We'll get to that. 45-degree bins, 22-degree bins, that's what a fitting is. Valves, this could be 6-inch valves, 8-inch valves. Those are the lion's share of the sizes that you'll be using on these water main installation and replacements. Meters, that's after the curb stop, and that also is involved with either getting them inside the house and outside the house, and with the services themselves when you'll be connecting possibly from copper to galvanized or vice versa. And hydrants, you'll need to make a note and make sure that if you get to a fire hydrant, if it be either taking it out of service or if you're installing a new one, make sure you take a note on your daily report to see what it is. Either that be KC Clow, a Mueller, an M&H. And for the next one on restrained, this could be like megalogs. This could be straddle blocks. This could be thrust restraints, kickers. all of those items will need to be on your plans, and they will need to be noted on your daily report. So starting at station 0+00 today with 6-inch DIP, and then stopped at station 3+02 or something along those lines. All right, so for the hydrant card process, all of this lovely information is very complex. Break it down to you. You'll be getting the hydrant ID information from the water map. That water map will be provided to you when you get that water main set of plans. You'll either get it from Drew, myself, Kevin, or just make sure we get communicated with, we can get you that water map. All right, so the location, and then drawing number, hydrant maintenance, new hydrant valve, all of that information. Let me just state the new hydrant valve, and though that item is on the back of the card. We don't have enough room on this slide to have both front and back, so let's just get to the KCC new. So normally on that make, we have KC1, and then for the main size, it's 6, 8, 10, 12. If you're doing transmission, it would be larger than that. For the project number, make sure you get that drawing number. It's always lower at the bottom in the lower right-hand corner of the plans. When it comes to the northern and easting, this happens when the as-builts actually happen. That would be the time frame after the project is done and before you submit it is when those numbers of northern and easting will need to be transferred over. For the city limits, yes. When it comes to silver, you always put no. You'll never be installing a silver hydrant in KCMO. We're trying to get rid of those. They flood buildings. So when it comes to curb distance, those are from like the faces of the house. So, or the curb line of the street. Depending on which way you will be, it will be either east of east, west of west, north of north, north of south, depending on which way you are. When you do a retirement card, it is taking that information from that water map and putting it on the card itself. So when you cross new out, you put retired, and then you'll put that information there. You won't have a northern and easting on a retirement card. All right, so valve card. So for valve cards, the C means county. So depending where the project location is what county you'll be in. The map ID will be something that you get from the water map when the FOM gets it for you. When it comes to the address, you know, we take the closest physical address that you can when it comes to these valves, or when it comes to the closest curb of also a cross street with that particular intersection. When it comes to what type, so you will have new valve cards, you will have retired. So when you work on your new valve cards, you'll put new and normal. You could have different types of makes. You could have American, you can have Clow, you can have M&H, Mueller, AK, and that would be one of those items you would need to just white out unknown and put AK there. Majority of the time when it comes to water mains, you'll be dealing with the reseal seat plug operated valve on majority of these. If you're working with the transition main, it's a whole other ball game with the butterfly, but we'll get to that someday when that takes place. So the installation date you put down there for that is actually what day in which it's installed. Getting down to more of the critical or more of the necessity items, the required items. For function, if you were to have an air release, it's done in the same similar fashion, but you need to mark that. Same with a line. Majority of the time, this is what you'll be marking as a line. And then you'll make sure and put that project number on there. You can have the C number, which is also the contract number, and then the drawing number, which also are located at the bottom right of your plans. For shut number, that is a number in which when you call for your test and your work shut, that's the number that's provided. So on remarks, you always put, who it's installed by, whether that be Havens, whether that be Haynes, Kissick, whoever contractor you're working with. Okay, so for testing, you have a hydrostatic test, which is also known as a pressure test. This test is a 2-hour-long test. Usually you have a stopwatch, be watching it. Usually within the first 10 minutes, you'll find out real fast whether or not this pressure test will last the 2 hours or not. So you'll have 160 PSI. You'll be needing to do a calculation for surge, the 50% surge. Usually that adds about 10 to 15 PSI to that test. So on a 6-inch main, 8-inch main, it could be 175, could be 180. If a contractor updates you that that line, oh my goodness, it's going to blow apart, that's something that they try to pull the wool over your eyes. For chlorination, I brought this lovely bottle. It's a brown bottle, and you'll be taking the chlorination. Can you see that? Can you see that? Hello? Anyone out there?
Yes. Yes, I can
We
see
just
it.
see this slide, yeah.
Okay, so sounds good. I brought for show and tell today the bottles that will be used, but the main thing for chlorination is you'll have a brown bottle, you'll fill it all the way to the top, and then residual will happen 24 hours later. For pressure test and a chlorination, they can be done in the same day. They don't have to be scheduled separately. But the residual will have to be done 24 hours after the first chlorination is done. So for instance, if it's 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the residual would need to be taken on Wednesday at 10 a.m. So the back tea is done in the clear bottle. That clear bottle has this white, lovely powder in it. That's supposed to be there. If it doesn't, you'll need to throw out the clear bottle away and get one that does have the powder in it. Or sometimes they have the pill at the bottom. Again, that's normal. You do want to use that. The initial back tea can be done on the same day as a residual chlorination. So they will need to flush from the chlorination. They'll put a neutralizer thiosulfate in there, flush that line out, and then they'll be taking the back tea. I cannot express to you enough for this bottle. It has a safety seal on it. RPRs, please do not open that. You have the contractor do everything for sampling with this bottle. Once the contractor is satisfied with this, they will give you the bottle back. It will then be given to you. That COC will be filled out. It's also called a chain of custody. And then you'll take this to the lab, get that turned in. And then the same thing with that process for the second back tea. This test for the back teas, we never get the results back earlier than 72 hours. That's just how the lab and the analysis work. So if you're testing this on all water main installations, majority of the time, they have testing requirements involved with them. So test shot process, it happens pretty much in line with the testing, or it happens directly after. The main reason for a test shut is operating those valves, making sure that water goes down to where the contractor can do his work. This will all be done via email. It will be done, you know, there's particular type of details you put on that email, you get it submitted. It's always request for test shut, and then the location, the address, project number, that will all need to be stated in the subject line. But once that's approved, then we'll send it out to the notification list. This will involve basically notifying everybody that will need to know what's happening in the area. So after that, the main thing that the RPR will need to do, and the wording that you need when you call this in to clear is or open the valves, you say clear this test shut. And that's the particular type of wording that you'll need to when you call the dispatch number in order to clear a shut. But again, the main point of doing a test shut is to operate those valves, making sure that fire hydrant goes down in order for that contractor to schedule their work and get the work done and get it complete.
Old valves in the city. It's always good to
Rehab.
make sure that they're shut for them.
All right. So for work shut, this is a similar process as the test shut. You operate those valves. You have the hydrant go down. This is scheduling for the contractor to actually do a permanent tie-in, a permanent shut, and getting that notification out there after the approvals have been made to get that work done. These always truly do have to be turned in 1 week or at the minimum 5 days before this work shut actually does happen. Now, these requirements on here, I can express this enough. Have your red line ready. Make sure you get that solid sleeve that they're going to be connecting with that existing to another solid sleeve, because after they backfill, you can't get that type of information. This always happens during the work shut. The main thing as well, when the work shut is even scheduled, or even before the work shut is scheduled, the water testing will be in. It will be accepted. It will be approved. It will be made aware that this line has no bacteria in it, or it passes all the requirements in order to drink it after it has been tied in. So with this, just getting that approval done through Water Services, it's all done via email, is the main thing on here. All right, so service transfers, these always happen after the work shut is done. So after the contractor gets their tie-in done, it is when the services can happen. This will be, you know, the meters and the curb stops and the corp that they have to tap into that main, that brand new main, and then that's when service transfers happen. You'll also know these as trench slips. They're the old-fashioned carbon copies, and one will be with the record drawings, one will go with GIS, another one will go with as-built. But the main point of service transfers is to get that documentation that the old main, it's not connected and tied into that old main. It's connected now to the new. So on noting that will also be in a remark. Will be, contractor connected. Actually, I guess we go to the next slide. All right, so this is actually the trench slip. I kind of was throwing this out there in the remarks and giving you a sneak peek for this, and this is with the remarks about getting that transfer, the house transfer done and complete, that service transferred from the existing, 6-inch CIP and going to either it'd be 6-inch DIP, 8-inch DIP. This right here, so when it comes to the main to the first valve, that would always be the corp. The corp would always be, no matter what, that first valve. That first valve would then be crossed out. It would be corp and then corp to first valve, which would be a curb stop. Majority of the time after the curb stop, they'll either connect the curb stop to the copper with a coupler, or they'll either connect it with a meter, and then it would all be brand new copper. So the main thing with the drawing up in the left is just getting that service tie in. That would be done, all the first valve and the location, and that's just the facing of the house. So whatever way you're facing, if you're facing north and the house is over here on the east, it would be actually facing west. Now, I know it's a little complex. It's going to need a lot of explaining. This is just a quick, overview for you to see what that trench slip looks like, and to kind of have a little visualization for what way the houses are and what way north is, and going from there. You'll need to put your name in the bottom right-hand corner. And then what the plumber, which would always be the contractor that you're working with. So these are the type of documents that you really need. You need to do that daily labor force report every day. And then on the field mark prints, I always recommend on those field mark prints to do it in red or do it in blue. Do it in a different color than black. Due to it just kind of represents, it's easier to find and know from new to existing to what's been installed and what hasn't. So the daily photos, so I can't also recommend daily photos say 1,000 words. See the blue that's on there, it looks like a trash bag. It's not, it's polywrap. That polywrap protects that pipe. Now, what I also know on 3/6, it has a timestamp. It has a date. What you'll see in this, the restraining is in the back that's labeled mat. That would be a kicker or a thrust block. That's done on all of the tie-ins, and this is actually a photo of a tie-in. My guess is probably streetcar. But that is where this one is, for hydrant cards and valve cards and trench slips. And, there will be a final checklist inspection done with the Smart Sewer project. Now, if for any odd reason that there is, the as-builts will go in with the SSP drawings. We'll just need to make sure and coordinate and get that drawing and that final inspection checklist with the final as-builts as well. All right.
All right, thanks, Tina. As far as chain of custody spreadsheet, valve, hydrant cards, trench slips, those are something that if you reach out to your FOR, they can get you those documents. All right, with that, we'll cover next vertical construction facility improvement projects with Kevin DeVoto.
Thanks, Drew. So looking forward to vertical construction projects, there's a lot of things that are going to be a little bit different than some of the linear work. One of the things to consider too is there's a lot of the testing that's done here is It'll say by the city. A lot of times, though, it's the RPR that's going to be responsible for helping to coordinate the efforts to get this work done. So having that RPR present and working with the contractor to plan out the work and understand how things are going to come together is pretty important, because they're going to be the ones responsible for setting up some of the third-party testing that's required. Some of the testings that we're going to cover here are things that, you know, the RPR can observe by themselves. Other things are going to have these third-party elements to them, and these third-party companies are going to need notices. They're going to need time to get out on site and set things up, and at times pull together information as well, like soils proctors and things like that. So having them embedded and talking to the contractor and involved with the planning of the project is important from day one, so that they know when they're going to be needed and when these tests are going to be needed. So think about that as we kind of go through some of these. So for the soils testing, you want to jump back real quick. I'll try to go through these relatively quickly because I know we're running a little short here, or a little bit long. But the you know, getting proctors tests out there, understanding what's needed in the specs related to soils, whether it be underground piping and bedding materials, subsurface preparation, testing, and then backfill testing as structures start to come out of the ground. Those are all pretty common elements to a lot of these facilities projects that we look at. And then you know, moving forward into there, some of these things dovetail into some of the other elements, but jump forward a slide here. Piping testing. So piping testing on some of these facilities jobs can vary quite a bit depending on, you know, what the pipe's carrying, the type of piping material that's there, what specs are going to require for different things, whether it be process piping, drainage piping, chemical feed piping, things like that can all have a say in how these things work. So sometimes these piping requirements are spread out all over the specs in Division 2, Division 15, kind of all over the place. But some of the common ones that we see, you know, well testing can be done. There's static air and pressure testing, pneumatic testing, static water pressure testing, you know, true just pressure testing of the pipes. A lot of times it's just visual leak testing of some of the stuff that's done there as well. So there's a lot of different types that you're working with the contractor to understand when these elements of the project are going to take place is pretty important. Structural work. So a lot of these jobs do involve concrete work as well. Unless the specs call out something specific for third-party testing, but in most cases, it's the RPRs that are looking at the rebar on this. So, getting yourself familiar with the structural drawings, getting yourself familiar with the rebar shop drawings, shops and the contract drawings, understanding what those. And getting out there and really taking a look at what the contractors have put in place. Checking bar size, checking lap lengths, checking tie connections, checking forms. May vary based off of where the concrete is placed on the project.
Kevin, this is John.
Yeah.
You've got a bad connection and you're bouncing in and out. Is
I'm
there
sorry.
a way that you can get to a better connection or a better location? I don't know where you are.
Yeah, give me 1 second here.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me now a little bit better?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Oh,
Thank
I don't know what y'all heard or what you didn't, but on the rebar side here, you know, I'll keep it brief. Checking, you know, make sure you understand the drawings and what you're looking at is the critical one here for the rebar. Jumping onto the concrete, we can talk about that next because that's, I think, one of the most critical elements for a lot of this vertical work is concrete. So, I definitely say take a few minutes when you get on these projects, if you're going to be responsible for checking concrete, to read through the Division 3 specs, specifically the 3300s, kind of where a lot of the meat and potatoes are on this. But read through all of them because things may vary from project to project. But understanding what the contract says in relation to how the concrete's going to be placed, whether or not the contractor's allowed to use specific types of formwork or not, understanding the pouring rates, how concrete's going to actually be placed in the walls. If you look at the photos here, just as an example on the bottom right there, that was a situation where the contractor was pouring some stuff, and the concrete wasn't ideal and the pour rate wasn't ideal, and we ended up with some pretty bad conditions after the pour was finished up. So understanding how all these things come together, so you can be aware of it as it's happening, or most preferably before things go in place. And you're talking with the contractors so that they're not getting ready and getting prepared to do things that aren't allowed is important. So understanding those, and then you have pour protection. In the winter months, is the concrete coming out too hot? Does it need to have ice in it? In the winter, is the space heated? Is the concrete heated? And then how all this stuff is cured. A lot of these specs have a lot of different requirements or available options for curing out concrete. So having the conversations with the contractor, how are you guys planning on curing this? Is it going to be water cured? Are you going to use a liquid cure? Are you going to hang burlap on the walls or leave the formwork on for a certain period of time? There's a lot of different things that these contractors can do, and you just got to make sure that what they're planning is acceptable. Other kind of random things that can come up as we get into some of the more architectural elements of these projects. So just from the photos, kind of talking through here, grout and mortar testing, a lot of these jobs do have some masonry element to them, whether it be true CMU vertical construction or just architectural block. The grout testing and mortar testing for that's a little bit different than your standard concrete testing. So understanding what that looks like and when it needs to be applied can be important. Looking at mill tests for paint thickness and painting, or pull testing on painting, things like that. The Division 9 specs can have some pretty unique testing requirements buried within them, or manufacturer's specific testing depending on the product. So reading through those specs and understanding what's being asked to be applied to the project can be pretty important, as well as reading through those submittals as they come in. The next kind of big role as we get into this is really reading through and understanding the startup planning and sequencing of these plants. Some of these plants are pretty simple. Others can be incredibly complicated with a lot of moving parts and pieces and a lot of different entities involved with getting these things started up. So hopefully the contractor's working with you and putting together a proper startup and commissioning plan, and you can kind of see all the parts and pieces ahead of time. But it's really going to be the RPR's responsibility to know when these systems are ready to roll. They're the eyes and ears out there. So if the contractor's saying, this is good and we've done all the steps that are needed to turn it on, you're going to be the person out there who's going to say, well, yes and no, or yay or nay. There'll be other people involved in that process, but as an RPR, it's going to be you're the eyes and ears out there. Then as we start getting into testing, they're going to be the ones witnessing all that testing taking place. So whether it be starting up a pump, starting up of process equipment, or doing run-throughs of a whole process train, through the PLC equipment and confirming communication back and forth between the plant and Blue River. So there's a lot of different elements to this that need to come together through startup and testing, and really getting into that commissioning spec, understanding what the contractor is required to do, can be a lot to absorb. So spend a good amount of time understanding what those requirements are.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
With that, we'll get into the next project type, which is green infrastructure. And first off, getting into green infrastructure, one important component is obviously the site activity plan. You should make sure that the contractor has submitted their plan per spec. It's usually wanting to see that submitted within 30 days of the notice to proceed. Within this plan, incorporates green stormwater infrastructure construction schedule, stormwater runoff management plan, site access and utilization plan, green stormwater infrastructure maintenance plan as well. Within green infrastructure also, it's very important to consider erosion control before the contractor starts work and also during construction. It's very important to protect the elements of the green infrastructure components. One example is the photo to the right. During construction, RPR noticed some sheet flow coming down the sidewalk. A particular area highlighted in green was identified for native seed, and it was just taking a while for germination to occur. So we went ahead and decided to place sod strips in this area to help limit some reeling that was potentially going to happen. So there's just a lot of little items like this that as you're out on site, make yourself aware and bring these items up to the project managers if you feel a design change or a BMP placement here and there would make a difference. Get to know your drawings and specifications. When you're out in the field, especially with green infrastructure projects, but all projects as well, just make sure that the materials that are delivered to the site are those that have been approved through the submittal process. Whether that's underdrain pipe, BMP soil, I mean, there's just all kinds of materials that it's very important for the functionality of the green infrastructure project. They are the correct materials. Understand the construction and the plan phasing. So as these materials are brought to the site, make sure that they're stockpiled in the correct location per the site activity plan, and they're not tracking or destroying their erosion control as it's set up. And ask questions. If something doesn't look right, bring that awareness to the project manager or the contractor superintendent. There are some potential unforeseen conditions that may pop up. You know, if geotech differs from what was originally shown in the project documents, you know, if the rock elevation is higher, you got tighter rock formations, make that known. Obviously, that'll affect the infiltration rates of the basin or the area, as well as potential unsuitable soil. So that could be during excavations if you're noticing some trash or debris, or as we have experienced before, some rubble or building foundation. These are, you know, emergency type situations where you need to let the project team know that something doesn't look right. As well as groundwater. You know, we've had a few projects here recently where groundwater has shown itself within the basins or making its way down the hillside through natural spring. Bring this to the attention of the project team as well, you know, because obviously there's going to be necessary design modifications, whether that's a French drain that needs to be placed or to extend the underdrain. As well as that, you know, that also could call for plant species changes, you know, to get some plant species in the basins that thrive better in a wet environment. That's water issue is going to be constant. Infiltration, percolation testing, very important. You do have pre-infiltration testing of the native soil within the basins. Make sure this is completed and accepted before any backfill can be placed in the basin, or, you know, if it's a paver area or what have you, as well as the post-construction infiltration testing. These rates should meet or exceed the rates of the pre-infiltration testing specified for permeable pavers in the 2945 GSI, and then also for soil and aggregate in the 2946. Bioretention soil placement. Again, confirm the contractor submitted the required testing and it's an approved material that is brought to the site. This stuff's kind of difficult to get, honestly. So yeah, just make sure that the tickets that are delivered to the site with each load match the approved submittals. Also confirm basically during unloading and placement that the contractor is not mixing the BMP soil with any other native soil. It's very important that they keep this clean of any debris or native soil as it's being placed. It should be placed in lifts, so specifies 6-inch lifts. So as you can see from the photo, kind of placing it like concrete, 6-inch lifts using the telebelt, working your way down the basin. And then also BMP soil should not have any heavy equipment tracked on it as well. So everything should be done and placed from outside the basin. Planting windows for grasses and perennials. Obviously, there's a couple planting windows. The fall planting window is 45 days. The spring planting window is 30 days. So for the fall, it starts September 15th and goes through October. And in the spring, April 15th and goes through mid-May. That is a 24-week delay from fall to spring. And then if you're unable to hit the spring planting window, it's a 4-month delay. So take this into consideration and track contractor's schedule as this relates to them being able to achieve the AFO date. For trees and shrubs, same situation. The fall planting window is actually 46 days from October 15th through November. Spring planting window 90 days, so through mid-February to mid-May. So that's an 11-week delay from fall to spring, and then a 5-month from spring to fall. And again, make sure that these contractors are on track to get these plantings installed so they don't miss these windows. Green infrastructure components, permeable paver installation. Again, verify the correct materials, acceptable conditions, and that falls in line with the infiltration testing. And then there's also some small issues that are helpful to lead towards the longevity and end product of the design and function of the system. This is a situation here where the RPR noticed that the particular tan pavers were coming out with hairline fractures in them. He brought this to immediate attention. They were able to do some QA/QC back at the plant and send the correct pavers. It obviously didn't have severe cracking in them. When they did deliver the second set, he did notice that there was a bit of a size difference. With this size difference, obviously it called for some design changes. The particular identified pattern wouldn't work with the tan pavers being this large. So kudos to the RPR. This is just an example of, keeping a close eye out. Small things, make a big difference. Irrigation and watering is very important. After the plantings have been installed, just keep in mind that public and private water lines should be metered. And also with any tree plantings, confirm that water bags are being used. And there's a couple photos of recent green infrastructure project that was finished up. As you can see, the end product looks pretty good. Just keep in mind that the steps that you take throughout construction just help facilitate success of the project during the maintenance period and also the long term. So with that, that's all we have. Just under an hour here. Thank you for attending. The next class is scheduled for next week, Thursday, September 8th, same time, 12 p.m. And just remember, if you have not accepted the invite, refer back to that original email and just click the schedule invite on there. I will send out PDFs of class 1 and 2 along with the RPR reference manual to everyone. I don't talk to you guys before the end of the week. I guess have a good weekend and holiday on Monday, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Drew.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
You too, thank you.
Hey, is the recording for the first class, is it available? I missed the first class. Was in the field.
Yes, I can send that. Is this Tyler?
Yes.
Tyler, I can send that to you, as well as at the end of a series of classes. All classes will be uploaded.
Could you also send that one to me? This is David Dmitrik.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
All right, you too. See you guys.